So let's talk about the weird case of a 40k list building app, where the people who make the data for Warhammer 40k are so annoyed at the platform itself that they're asking people to stop supporting it. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today I thought I'd do a quick follow-up video on the interesting things that have been happening around Battlescribe over the last couple of days. I must admit I do find it a bit of a curious state of affairs when the people who are making the data for the app are basically so annoyed at the app that they've released a collective statement condemning it. So just to sum up what we talked about in the last video and the news since then, Battlescribe is a rather good 40k list building app. It's used by many and has a massive 4.8 stars on the App Store, just ridiculously better than Games Workshop's rating on their own offering. Battlescribe is owned by One Guy Software Company, you can see it listed on the UK HMRC, but all the data that's made for the gaming systems that the apps support is made by the community. 40k I believe is the single largest user by a long way, and there's a dedicated team of volunteers providing all the info to Battlescribe for that. Really quite a lot of time and work given Games Workshop's big in-depth codexes that drop really frequently, and then continuing to patch and change things if there's any errors or small clarifications, all stuff that does take a lot of time and effort. Around about 2 years ago, the developer stopped basically updating the app and ghosted the community team. Previously they had a little bit of contact with updating basic things to allow their data to function, and people were assuming that the app was basically abandoned, the creator gone off elsewhere to do other things. People were assuming it was just going to die a slow death due to redundancy and no further updates, and eventually not work on people's phones. This came to a head yesterday when the app was delisted from the Apple App Store briefly. People seem to think that it was due to the app not being updated in 2 years, and most people weren't expecting the developer to show up again, seeing as they hadn't responded to anything in a couple of years, and were thought to have moved on. Then of course, as I updated the video and posted in a community post, the developer has basically resurfaced on Twitter, said that the reason for the app being taken down was that their credit card had lapsed on the Apple iOS developers thing. They say that that's fixed and now the app should be okay to download from iOS again, and their silence has been mainly due to them needing to take some personal time. They said that they'll be providing some more maintenance updates on all platforms, so hopefully business as usual for Battlescribe going on. From a user point of view, I think it's really good news. Provided they do as they say and they actually support the app, then it basically looks like Battlescribe will be functioning into the future. Very good news for people who rely on it for building lists and removing one barrier to entering the hobby, which is already complex enough. However, the sudden reappearance after years of absence really hasn't made the 40k data team any happier, and they've posted a rather interesting Reddit post to say why. Their situation does seem to be a pretty frustrating one, to be honest. Hours and days of work making the app actually function and provide all the data to keep it current, but the developers ignored their needs and requests over the period of 2 years while reaping all the rewards financially. I'm not sure if it necessarily makes that much difference from a responsibility point of view, but it is interesting that Battlescribe does bring in rather a lot of money, it would seem. The basic version has some ads, whereas the premium version has a $3 per year subscription to cut them out, which to be honest for an app is really quite good, and I think a lot of people really don't have any big problems with paying that. Across a worldwide gaming community, mainly 40k but also some other things, that's going to add up pretty well. And at least judging by Battlescribe's HMRC reports, which you have to file in the UK, it looks like the takings from the app add up to a 6-figure income stream, somewhere slightly over £100,000. This all going to the app's owner, who hasn't really done anything much for the last 2 years, and not to any of the people who keep the community updates coming. I totally might be missing things or not know the full picture from the HMRC earnings reports, but that's what it looks like on paper. For all I know though, the company might have other ventures that they're getting money from. It does seem at least fairly plausible though, given a worldwide gaming community and those kind of subscription fees. I think maybe to the 40k data team, the disparity of reward versus effort is a bit grating. By not having updates to the app, it is making their job a little bit trickier, and if they can't even monetize their labour with crowdfunding or anything, as basically that will be selling Games Workshop's rules to some extent, something that Battlescribe can avoid themselves as they're basically a hosting site for other people's data. They're more of a medium for the distributing rules than actually doing the distributing themselves. So this one's just a very rough overview of the statement that the 40k data team have posted up to their Reddit, and I'll link it down in the video description. They highlight that they're putting in lots of hours and days to make the 40k content usable on the platform, but they really are struggling to make data that works around Battlescribe's many bugs and errors. As technology moves on, many things have been spotted and various different bits are failing, and they really could do with the creators' help to actually patch those bits and make their effort more worthwhile. Some of the team who are doing the data are apparently quit due to this, so it might not be super amazing news for people who use Battlescribe for 40k lists if the updates happen slower and maybe to less quality because there's less people working on the team. I'd say perhaps the most interesting bit of the post is that they're asking people to cancel any subscription that they have to Battlescribe to basically put some pressure on the developer to actually maintain their product, and if they don't maintain it, then be well ready to jump ship onto an alternate product if and when one appears. I'm sure that that kind of statement doesn't really come lightly. It is an interesting move to say stop supporting the platform that uses our data, particularly when the end user experience still seems to be pretty good at the moment. I guess it's maybe a bit of a question whether or not you protest against something that isn't being done quite well enough, or whether or not you just grit your teeth and just deal with it. In a bit of an edit to the post, they did say that they admit that good alternatives don't really exist right now, though they are working on an open source project called Phalanx, an army builder that will apparently use the same Battlescribe data and basically do the same job but as an open source code program so it can be edited and modified by the community into the future. But currently that's been in development for a really good long time and it isn't ready at the moment. If there happens to be anyone who's particularly experienced with developing apps and want to try and help them out, I do advise people to head over to their Discord server. Otherwise, for community options, there's an app called Rosterizer that someone's developing. That one's not out yet though, I think that's in beta stage. And one called New Recruit, which is aimed at 9th Age, the spin off of Warhammer Fantasy when that went away. To my knowledge, it does have some decent 40k support. I can't say I've used it myself though. Again, they explain why people can't help them out financially, and they can't crowdfund things for fear of Games Workshop having legal repercussions against them. I believe that there's a difference between distributing a limited amount of game rules and selling Games Workshop stuff outright. I must admit, I'm not sure how many people are going to take up this request to cancel Battlescribe memberships. My guess is that the vast majority of people won't be spurred into action by this. Not very many people are that engaged with the news and minor drama around it, and they'll probably just be very happy to use the service, which still seems to be pretty good. I guess from an individual's point of view, it depends on whether you weigh up the worth of the 40k data team and all the hours of work that they put in at the moment, compared with the value of the app and the original person who built and designed it. I do suspect that there'll probably be differing opinions out there. I'll certainly be interested to hear what people have to say in the comments, though I will try and keep it respectful. Finally, just to add a few qualifiers and caveats. Obviously this is a bit subjective, plus there's a fair amount of information that we just don't really know. First up, the app's owner certainly did say that they'd published some maintenance updates. That's at least a positive sign, though after a couple of years of absence, it does make you wonder whether or not that's actually going to happen. Apparently there's still been zero contact between them and the 40k data team, even since they've resurfaced and answered a few questions via Twitter. If they do just choose to maintain the app well though, that seems like it would solve pretty much all of the problems. Otherwise, I would bear in mind that we don't really know why the developer has been away. They did say that they need to take some personal time on Twitter, and that could mean that there's some genuine real-life reasons why they've just not been able to dedicate enough time towards the app. There's a lot of serious reasons why people might need to take time away from work. I think this prompt response, though, to the app's delisting on iOS was one of the things that caused people to roll their eyes about this, though, a little bit. It seems that as soon as the revenue stream from the app is threatened, they can respond when they want to. Otherwise, even if it was just the developer choosing not to take ownership of their own project anymore, I think it is kind of debatable whether or not they really have any real duty to do so. At least theoretically, if they did want a career change and didn't want to be an app developer anymore, there's nothing that people can really make them do to maintain the thing if they don't want to. And even with a couple of years of neglect, it still seems that it works quite well for the vast majority of people, even if it gives the data team a hard time. Still though, super frustrating if you are trying to keep it functional for 40k though. You sink loads of time and effort into it, and then all that effort is let down by someone not doing their part on their end of the thing. On paper it certainly seems like it would be in their interest to do the bare minimum of maintenance to keep it functional though. That is a lot of revenue that it would be a shame for them to lose. At the moment, Battlescribe is very much the dominant army builder out there, but if problems with it continue, then people might well just jump ship to another product when it comes along. Maybe that Phalanx thing, Rosterizer, or that New Recruit app. Finally, I have just heard one rumour that I can't really vouch for too much credibility of, but one thing that I've seen at least suggested is that the app developer might have been quietly contacted by Games Workshop to go silent. We have seen that sort of thing happen a few times with those fan animators when they basically had a competing thing with Warhammer Plus. If GW had reached out to them in that way, they likely wouldn't be allowed to talk about it. If we are putting tinfoil hats on and doing conspiracy theories, the timeline might make sense with Games Workshop launching their own Army Builder app around about 2 years ago. And even if they didn't really have any good legal recourse to actually shut Battlescribe down, that still doesn't mean that they couldn't make life very hard for them legally. If they can't afford to contest the case, then who's right or not might not necessarily really matter. I will admit though, aside from just hearsay, I don't really have any backing for that, and I'll fully admit that people love to blame Games Workshop for everything and anything, such as when the app went down from iOS yesterday, people all initially assumed that it was Games Workshop's doing, even when it was just the app lapsing between the developer and Apple. They do a whole bunch of things that people would want them to change, but it doesn't mean that they're actually responsible for literally every ill in the community. So anyway, I hope you found that at least in some way interesting. If I've got anything too wrong or messed anything up, feel free to let me know in the comments, and let me know what you make of the data team's request to stop supporting Battlescribe. It'll be interesting to see how that goes down, and whether or not it really does make any big dent in their numbers. I'll leave links to that Reddit post and Battlescribe's Twitter down in the video description as well, so feel free to check them out. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly try and keep the regular 40k updates coming. I do tend to post new stuff most days. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that I do have a Patreon page which you can support if you want to keep Auspex Tactics' videos coming. The link's down in the video description, feel free to check it out if you'd like to, and I do try and give some decent rewards for channel backers, such as being able to see videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that's interesting to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.